Hello everybody and welcome back to Chapter Master. No, it's not the Storm Knights Crusades. In fact, it is a trading and diplomacy guide for Chapter Master. I realized in the last video I relied on trading with the Sisters of Battle to boost up my numbers, and I realized that for all I use, diplomacy to get manpower and equipment, I've never actually explained it fully. So I thought I'd like to just explain not the full aspect of diplomacy, but just mostly trading and what advantages it has by trading with each individual faction. So, we will begin. Now, you can see there are the four main branches of the Imperium you can trade with, and these guys who you shouldn't trade with if you're a true loyalist like myself. Now, trading with the Imperial Governor, he will offer you requisition for gene seed. The 1d4 jam page actually has a really good math calculation for gene seed for requisition. I think it's like 15 gene seed for 500 requisition. But I personally never trade gene seed because I think it's more valuable, and it goes against the spirit of the things. Anyway, you can also trade them STC fragments. I've never found info chips ever in any of my playthroughs, so I'm choosing to believe it's like the squats and they're just imaginary. Now they can give you requisition, recruiting planet. That's really useful to have. I find it's about 3 grand or more depending on the level of disposition. Remember, the level of disposition will affect how much items will cost for what you're trading with, and to get the higher tier items for the other factions, which I'll get to later, you'll need to have at least a minimum of 50 disposition to unlock the higher tier trading items. Now, requisition, that's obvious. Recruiting planet, that just gives you another planet where you can get potential recruits from. It's fairly obvious what that is. A repair license is really useful. So, a repair license, I think it was 1200 the last time I spent on it, but I was below 50. I think the lowest I've ever talked them down to was about 700 for a repair license, and that will repair every ship of yours that is orbiting an Imperial planet. You would think it would have to be over a forge world or something because of the the lore, but no. If you're orbiting an Imperial planet and you purchase a repair license, all of your ships that are orbiting Imperial planets will be repaired, which is incredibly handy and kind of necessary unless you have the high-end SDC that gives your ship self-repair capability. Crusade license, that allows you to issue a crusade. Crusades are really good at giving your men experience, but a lot of them will come back dead, and overall it's not really worth it because having the numbers on the field is better than the experience gain in my personal case. So that's for the Imperium. Of course, ways to raise disposition is to praise them and to give them artifacts. So gifting certain factions artifacts will improve your relationship with them, as well as I've said, fighting on planets where they're fighting. So defending a Ecclesiarchy Shrine World will usually give you 1 or 2 disposition, and as I said, praising them and giving them artifacts is the main one as well. Now the Mechanicus, trading with the Mechanicus, again, I need to have 50 standing with them to get the higher end artifacts, which is minor artifacts and tech priests. Tech priests act like off-brand tech marines, which can repair your vehicles and salvage them after battle. However, they do have less health and less armor class than your standard tech marines. Now, Land Terminator armor, it's like 150 bucks each as standard. It's bullshit. And Land Raiders, again, that's like 700, 800. I really don't like trading with the Mechanicus because they're the biggest price gougers out of everyone. Also, you can trade SDCs for them, but again, an SDC will only give you like 2 suits of Terminator armor, which, considering for what it is a bit bullshit, but there you go. So that's trading with the Adeptus Mechanicus, which, by the way, actually is made redundant with the Horus Heresy mod because you can just purchase Terminator armor, or you can purchase Land Raiders for a far more reasonable price, especially if you have a couple STCs backing you up. So the Mechanicus are just dullards to trade with. Now, the Inquisition. Trading with them, you can get Condemn the Bolt Guns, Hell Rifles, Incinerators, which do bonus damage to traitors and demons alike. They're high-end items, which are as I said, at 50 are Crusaders. Crusaders are warriors, basically humans. They're armed with standard power armor, so 16 armor class, and they have power swords and storm shields. So they're good for the front line, or they're actually good for deploying at the back, because remember, all hirelings actually go under the honor guard standing in the back out of this in the chapter settings. So as you can see, hirelings actually go part of the honor guard. So this is where they will end up. No, sorry, it is actually question marks go under hirelings. In the early version, that came under honor guard. But yeah, hirelings will go wherever you put them. So you could either put them on the front line if you want them to be a meat shield, or deploy them at the back to protect your devastators from the flanking lictor. But usually I just deploy them standard, as is. So yes, as I was saying, that is the Crusaders you can get for trading from the Inquisition. And Exterminatus, I've said this before, it costs 2,000. It's pretty expensive. And how that works is you buy an Exterminatus from somebody, you give it to a Marines, or so let's just say, you know, re-equip up here. In this one, you would have this one. So you'd have Exterminatus, so you'd give them an Exterminatus. Then you must win a raid battle on the planet you wish to Exterminatus. Say, this, for example, this one. If you win that battle, then congratulations, you get to blow up the planet. At 2,000, even if it's 2,000 basically no matter what. As I said, I was like at 70 disposition with the Inquisition one time, and they were still charging me 2 grand. They're kind of price gouging pricks, but there you go. Now, the one I use the most, and honestly the most useful, is trading with the Ecclesiarchy. Now, they can give you Eviscerators, which are basically upgraded, you know, super chainsaws. Heavy Flamers, which are actually pretty useful. Inferno Bolts, not so useful. You know, they're just kind of there. But the best thing is Sisters of Battle and Sisters Hospitaller. Now, Sisters Hospitaller basically work as apothecaries, except they cannot harness Gene Seed. And Sisters of Battle basically work as Lion Space Marines. They're armed with bolters, so they don't get your chapter upgrades if you've got the bolter drilling. But they will give you the standard 40 dam bolter weaponry with 16 armor class power armor. They're basically really handy in a pinch to boost out your numbers. And I would highly recommend, well, in the Lamenter's Redemption, whenever I do that, I usually end up having more Sisters of Battle than Space Marines, because they're just so bloody useful. In fact, let us go see, as you can see here, oh, it is affected by my bolter drilling. So there you go. I always thought it wasn't, but there you go, 46 damage. Nice, 16 armor class power armor. As you can see, the Hospitallers. There you go. So all of your hirelings will come under your honor guard section just for management purposes. So honestly, the best people to hire from is the Ecclesiarchy, the Inquisition. The Imperium I usually just use for getting fleet repairs, and the Mechanicus I usually just throw a toaster at them every so often and tell them to eat shit, because you can just buy whatever they're selling yourself without needing to worry about it. So there you go. That is my standard pattern for diplomacy. However, before we go, I will give you some of my more insider tips. So this is based off having a standard 50 diplomacy with them. Crusaders, it's 200 requisition for free. It's the cheapest I've ever been able to price gouge them at 50 disposition. At the 70 disposition, when I had the highest one, I was actually managing to talk them down to 120, but that took a lot of artifacts and buttering up to get to that point, and it isn't really worth it, you know, just to save 80 requisition a time. So they come in bunches of free, and they're pretty useful, but the one you really want is the Sisters of Battle. And again, as I said, I've talked these guys into an art form, so you get free Sisters of Battle for 150 requisition. You get a free Sisters of Battle and a Sister Hospitaller for 250. And that's about the cheapest I've ever been able to, well, I tell a lie. As I said, the cheapest I've ever managed to get them is free Sisters of Battle for 100, and free Sisters of Battle and a Sister Hospitaller for, what was it? It was 210. It was a weird number. But there, basically 150, so you get them in batches of 3, and the requisition they want is 150. Now, as I will show you here, if you try and go down much lower than that, moderate chance is usually a no. Sometimes it's a yes, it just depends on how lucky you are. But usually I just go for 150, free for 150. And that's basically very likely, and it's, again, the most obvious outcome for success. Again, as I said, a Sister Hospitaller, you're looking at 150. No, that's 150. I'm not price gouging myself out of a 100 requisition. There you go, 150. And there you go. So, that's just my quick guide for trading and diplomacy and all the stats and numbers in the game. I've never actually... Let's just try it while we're here. See, Chaos have no items because they were never actually implemented, unfortunately. It would have been cool to get chaotic artifacts and, you know, demonic bolt guns and stuff from them, but oh well. Maybe one day. So there you are. That is my guide for trading and diplomacy in the Imperium of Man in the realms of Chapter Master. So, I shall say adios, good chaps, and farewell.